Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to another episode of Cities Skylines. And last time out, we built out this really luxury mansion area with a little village centre, nice little marina waterfront next to our big ferry pier here, little park peninsula as well. But the main focal point being these luxury mansions, fit for the Formula One stars, the NBA stars, the movie stars, whoever has enough money to afford them. So thank you so much for all of the support on that episode. And we also did come out with a live stream to build out this luxury mansion island over here, which is yet to be finished, I would add. I did manage to get in the little boat yard ramp down into the water here, but we may come out and change this for actually a better asset come the next stream, so watch out for that. But for today, we are going to be turning our attention all the way over to the other side of Auridon. And that is to this little piece of land over here. Now this actually is a high point in Auridon. If we look at the terrain markings, this actually sort of looks down on a lot of the downtown and Canaldon in particular, but actually all the way over to Auridon and to the airport over here as well. A little bit of a peak in the landscape, and I say a peak for Auridon, we're talking relatively flat land, but it is raised up a little bit here, as you can see from this road. Kind of slopes down and then towards the downtown that way. So we are going to be using that to our advantage, and we are going to be building a massive castle on top of this piece of land here, and we will be making it a little bit higher so it stands a little bit taller looking down over the rest of Auridon. And then around it we'll be building out a nice suburban area with schools, parks and the such like, and really just concentrating on detailing up this amazing castle complex in the middle here. So let's get cracking. So first things first, I do want to bring out some public transit into this area. And of course we have this internal train line that runs all the way nicely along this side, which runs right from the downtown central transit harbour over here, all the way through the factory area, which we still do need to give a name, which I have not forgotten about. We will do that. And all the way on into FewCastle Airport this side. So we're going to bring a little breakout into this line into a station this side, which will give really good transit access for anybody in this area. So let's start off by just drawing out a small bit of road like that. And the train station we are going to use for here, because this is relatively suburban and won't be too busy, we don't need a multi-platform train station or anything like that. And I also want it to be on the ground because of the changes in terrain height here. We're going to bring out a tunnel underneath this main collector and then also a tunnel under to join back into the sunken rail this side. So I feel like this is the most appropriate train station to be adding in here. So let's just grab that. It's a little bit close to that road and we haven't grabbed all of the nodes there. So let's make sure we do that. And we're just going to drag it out slightly further away. And we'll line it up more so that the rail is even to that road, I think is more appropriate like that. And then of course, let's come in with our railway lines and join this up. So what I am thinking is that we will tunnel it underneath from this point. So let's go to tunnel mode and then let's drop it down as well. So we'll drop it down actually by about 9 meters and we can of course adjust that afterwards. And then let's bring that out in a nice curve around to here. And then just join it up like that. Now that is incredibly, incredibly not smooth. So for starters, let's draw this node slightly further away from the station, which gives us a much longer tunnel access there. And again, with these, we can just move these all out and they all need a lot of smoothing. So let's grab our nodes here, the underground ones at least, and we'll just use a little bit of slope tool to make sure that that's nice and appropriate. In fact, they do all need dragging down just a little bit because we can see them poking out of the terrain there. So let's go ahead again and grab those nodes and we will just drop them slightly further down like that. And this one's maybe a little bit too far down. Let's go ahead and grab that first node. We don't want that too steep coming out of there. So let's page that up and we can have this tunnel sticking nicely up against that road like that. So yeah, that feels a bit more appropriate. We can do some landscaping around that to make that blend in a bit more there. And then let's bring it out the other side as well. So I will do just a little bit which is flat along the ground here, and then we will go back into tunnel mode of course and drop this down by about 9 meters again, I think is appropriate here. Then what we'll do is we will bring this out and round to connect up to this track here. And I think we'll bring it in like that. And what I will do actually is just upgrade a few smaller sections of this track here so that it comes out a little bit nicer this side. And it doesn't look too steep, and it doesn't look like it's interfering with the terrain too much there. We might sort that out a little bit in the detail in time-lapse and neaten it up a little, but for now that will do absolutely fine. So before we forget, what we will do is just create a stop for our airport line here so that they can stop on their way from the downtown into here. Now this turn is really particularly sharp. I've probably made this a little bit too close here, so I am just going to drag this back just a tiny touch so that's slightly less severe coming off into this turning out there. Again, something that we can sort out in the detail in time-lapse if we need to. Okay, so next up I am going to look at the terrain lines and mark out our road network. So what we will be doing is looking to have nice, smooth, flat roads which follow some of this terrain round, making sure that we're leaving this peak here for the castle. Okay, so there we go, and we are working with some pretty slopey terrain. If we come down to ground height here, you can see actually just what the gradient is actually like, and it is pretty steep. I've just flattened out this area here in preparation for something that we will put there later on in the episode. But yeah, you can see it's pretty steep hills, and we'll need to go around with a bit of node controller, I think, just to slope out some of these intersections as well, but we'll do that again in the detailing time-lapse. But it's quite a substantial area, and all of this area around where the main castle is going to sit, up on the key point here, is going to be suburban sprawl. But let's come on to our main feature, shall we? So I do want to actually just raise this up a little bit. So this is the key height here. And although it is high and it looks down over the suburb and on down to the downtown, I'd like it to be a little bit higher. Like, I'm not thinking quite Edinburgh Castle vibes, but quite like, I want it to stand out quite a lot in Auridon. So we are just going to terraform this out a little bit. Not quite to that extent, but let's drop it down a few notches, potentially to this kind of height. And as always, this is this is really going to look absolutely awful before it starts to look good. So you are going to have to bear with me on this. The detailing really will bring this all together. And we will go through and kind of make sense, make a lot more sense out of some of these terraforming aspects as we go through the episode. Yeah, if we kind of terraform out a reasonably flat area like this, if you come down to this level, you can see this is quite a steep slope here up from the road. And that's what we want, is kind of this big cliffy rock texture looking up to these castle walls up on the top layer here. So yeah, we'll just make sure that we've got this level right. And then we'll think about placing the assets and work on what the outside of it looks like afterwards. So yeah, I am quite enjoying, I think, this height here. And what I would like actually is the central point into the castle to come out opposite this road. And what we will do is actually create a pedestrian area out of this. So I'm really thinking that the one that is most suitable for this, because it's going to be an old kind of historical area, is going to be the cobblestone pedestrian street. Let's go ahead and just add in a little ramp up into the castle like that. We will just follow it on straight for a little bit further so we can start adding some assets into there. We'll worry about the facilities for the pedestrian area in a second afterwards. Let's actually just pause the game while we get our main assets in and positioned. So the first asset that I do want to place is actually another sea fortress. Now I know we have used this on Cities Island, which is our other castle build in Auridon, which is going to be quite a different vibe to what we have here. But because I have got Game Anarchy on, I can use multiple unique buildings, so that is what we are going to do. And we're going to use it in a very, very different way. So although this is a sea fortress, we're not going to be using it on the sea. And I would add as well that you can get the sub building for this, which is just this castle area, which I did consider doing, but actually I think for what we want here, it doesn't really work in quite the fashion that I want. I want this little main entrance into this little castle complex sitting at this end here. So what I do want to do is make sure that it is perfectly aligned up to this cobblestone road coming straight in here. And it is going to make the ground look absolutely awful because obviously it's meant to be on the sea, so we're pushing it right down into the ground to get this looking sensible here. So it is going to look really, really strange, but there's a lot of detailing and things that we can do around it to help it blend in. So again, you're just going to have to bear with it. Let's grab our pedestrian road here, and what we will do is just bring out a point to the entrance here. We'll hope that we've still got that node there. And then, yeah, we are going to bring this up to the same height as the sea fortress here to provide access to it, just like that. And then what we want to do is grab this level of height of the terrain for this top level here and just smooth out this area around the sea fortress. So it's going to kind of be on its own little mound within the mound of the castle, I would add. So bring it out like this. And now I did consider a few different options with this. We could have added a moat in all the way around the edge, but actually I'm not too kind of keen on the aesthetic that that brings to this. So I'm going to avoid that at this time. And we're actually going to use a few assets, a few ploppable grasses to blend this into the outside area. If I just show you what I mean by that, let's grab our ploppable grass, and we want the largest square size that we have got here, which I think is going to be that one. And what we're going to do is just kind of blend in the castle like so that we can't see that dip in the terrain anymore. So it's going to be a little bit of a finicky process, and one that I will probably finish off in the detailing time lapse. But this, you can kind of get the idea with this, that we're not going to be able to see that hole, so it's not going to matter to us actually in the long run. And around this as well, we will be adding more castle wall to kind of enclose this little fort in the middle of our castle area here. So we just have a little look at the height from the highway here. You can see it is nicely raised up. And as we come over from this direction as well, we get that in a nice little layer of height, particularly as we come off here. You can see those layers kind of going up to the castle there, which is exactly what I want to see. And the second main asset that we are going to be putting in here, and a lot of you who have followed Auridon since the start will know that there's a certain story around this asset, but we are finally going to be adding in the cathedral. And having a little look at castles on the Google Earth and on the internet and different pictures and things, there is a lot of castles which have cathedrals or church-like structures within them. So I think that this fits quite well. And we're going to have to imagine that this castle as well is one that has been restored in different parts, because all around this we will be using the vanilla castle walls as well, and these kind of structures to flesh it all out. So as part of that, I do want quite a grand main entrance to it as well. So we're going to be using the turrets, and these are usually ones which are available in Map Editor, but obviously if you have Find It, you can also access them from that. And in fact, what I am going to do is just turn these around so that those doors are on the other side, so that they're internal doors to the castle, as opposed to being external. And then what we will do is actually use our little sub-buildings trick to find the archway, the city centre arch, and this is what we will be using to create our nice entranceway into the castle. Now, I recognise this is like a steel arch and maybe isn't exactly the right architecture for a castle like this, However, this really looks quite nice, I think, and works well. And again, we're imagining that this is a tourist attraction that has been somewhat modernised and restored and adjusted over the years. So if we go back in again, I do want to use these ruin walls as well to surround this whole complex and to surround this whole area. So what I will do is place this in around, and we're going to be using these turrets as kind of markers around it to define the area as well. But yeah, let's go ahead and create our castle area. And I'm not going to do this as perfectly uniform lines. I want it to be a little bit higgledy-piggledy because, again, looking at castles on Google Earth, they are definitely not like perfect circles or perfect blocks by any means. So this is what we are going to be going for here. And I'm going to bring this side actually out pretty straight this way. So I'll bring it out to there for now, and then let's make sure that we've got this front entrance aligned up perfectly. So I want to make sure that we're following the same line that we have done here, and then we'll just bring this out straight to meet it, which that is just about good enough. Then of course we'll be adding in these decorative tunnels all over, and we will change up bits of the walls for the different types, ones that are largely restored and then others which are further broken down. Now what I would also like to add as a nice feature is the main castle ruins, but what I'm going to do is kind of merge them into the wall here so that they form sort of part of what you could imagine would be a security post or the such like in the wall. So it's kind of an older bit to the main fort over there, and definitely left in ruins. This bit has not been restored yet. This is probably the oldest part of the castle that is still left upstanding. That's what I'm kind of imagining with this. And what we do want to check is angles here, because I want to make sure that that cathedral is visible from most angles, and particularly I think from this highway is most important here, and down from this shoreline as well. We want to make sure that we're seeing all those different heights up there on the top of the hill. And then of course we'll just go around and add in more of our turrets. We're trying to think of even spaces most of the way around, but also kind of highlighting where the main corners are, I think is pretty important here, and trying to vary it up between the more broken down turret and the slightly taller turret as well. Again, trying to make sure that those doorways are on the inside, I think as well, is pretty important for this. So in actual fact, I think looking at it now, what I will do is break up this corner slightly. So let's just break off these pieces of walls, and we will actually sort of mirror what we've done the other side and bring out a bit of a diagonal line up to here, up to this fort this side. We can add in a nice turret here, and again at this point as well. Yeah, I'm kind of happy with how that is looking now. And there is an awful lot of detailing that we are going to need to do inside these grounds. What I'm going to do is create little ruined areas that look like different buildings that would have formed part of the main castle area that have been left ruined, and also some kind of commercial touristy attraction units as well, things like souvenir shops and the such like, so that we've got more attraction for people coming into the area too. Let's just make that slope a little bit more gentle there. And we'll create pathways as well so that people can walk around the entire complex. And of course we do need to sort out the terrain around the outside as well. So the first thing that I am actually going to do here is just raise up this road slightly this side. So I think we'll take these 3 nodes here and just raise them up even further than they have been, of course. There's additional nodes here that we have not picked up. And these are highly unnecessary, actually. So let's go ahead into Network Multi-Tool and we will remove those. Let's grab our 3 nodes again and try again. We'll just raise this up a little bit more so that that slope there is not quite as steep as it was. And we can get layered residential in here, which I'm absolutely fine with. So let's then slope this section down towards that junction there. I think we'll raise this node up slightly this side and then just slope it off to that one here as well. That's reasonably straight. And it doesn't look too bad coming down this hill already. But let's just make sure that that's nice. I'm okay with the heights this side as well. It's not quite as steep because the land was a little bit higher. So I think that that is generally looking pretty nice. And what we do need to do to tidy it up as well is come in with a little bit of softened terrain, just to make some of these slopes a little bit more appealing and slightly less harsh all the way around. Now I do want to keep this cliff texture on this side, but we want a little bit of overgrowth and the such like around it. So yeah, that's sort of kind of annoying me how that's gone in there. There we go. If we can kind of just do it slightly more roughly from different points, then hopefully that kind of flat bit that's forming in the middle of it won't be quite as defined as it is there. Although it does need to be pretty smooth. But I just don't know why it's smoothing out that bit. Maybe we use the slope function here and that will give us slightly more even slopes going all the way up. Okay, so a little bit of playing around later. I'm kind of happy with the effect that that gives there. I don't want to be using too many rocks to kind of cover up any of this cliff texture because I quite like the natural rock as it is. And then over here we will make this a lot more gentle in terms of the slope down to the road here. That flows into it a little bit more. Probably have some pathways around the outside, I think here. A little bit of kind of nature walk needed, I'd say. Yeah, it's just kind of doing that slope in two parts. And actually looking at it from this side, it's not too bad like that. So I think we will leave that and move on. So yeah, there we go. So I'm quite happy with the aesthetic that we are getting with this. But like I said, this doesn't look great just like this. We really massively need to come in with a lot of detail to tidy up these grounds. But before we do that, I think it is time to add in our residential around the outside. So what we're looking for here is nice small suburban houses. There may be a little bit of high density just up this end as we sort of start to get closer to the downtown here. And we do need to bear in mind we've got Auridon, which are some really tall buildings over this side. So a little bit of a step down in height I think would be needed there. Around this side, we'll be doing a bit of European suburbia, actually, very heavily repeated pattern of houses, just to kind of get a bit more of a sort of lower income area estate around this side, maybe some nicer looking houses across this side. So we're catering for different levels of income there. And then we'll come back to the pedestrian area and the detailing of the castle in just a second. So I decided not to edit in me plopping in all of these houses because firstly it took a ridiculously long amount of time and secondly you've seen enough of me plopping in houses. So let's just take a little look around. So as mentioned over here we have done this European suburbia little district here using the same style of assets, so selecting all of the two-storey kind of blocky square house assets here to create this little neighbourhood, which I feel has a sort of vibe of a slightly lower income neighbourhood, but still nice with all the hedges and the such like. I mean, they are close to the castle. It's not like Auridon over here. And so we just swept that round this side, and then we start to come into some sort of nicer looking assets, starting off with a few little maisonettes over here next to the elementary school, which of course we will detail up the playground, as always, when we come to the detail in time-lapse. And just added in a nice little play park here as well, so that we're getting good land values over here, because we want it to be pretty high, I think, around the castle. So we want all the services and parks and the such like in there. And then, yeah, just being careful about the asset selection coming down here. Now, some of these are a little bit dodgy and need tidying up. I'll probably remove that house there. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that now. That's a questionable placement. Dug right into the ground there. So we'll do some little detailing on this corner to tidy this up. But yeah, being careful with selecting assets. So we've got like a little row of American Eclectic here, coming on to some more of the college assets and the same type of assets there. And then coming on to more vanilla little townhouses along the front of the water here. And we've got nice big step-ups in the terrain, which are great to detail. So I've just done a little bit of it already here, covering it up with a bit of undergrowth, some rocks and some trees. But this is exactly what I wanted to see here, this nice step up in the suburbia up towards the main castle grounds there. So we get really, really nice flowing layers up towards that peak. And then over here you can see we've done another little block of European suburbia, a few more townhouses as we go into a little bit more high density assets over here. But it is all about trying to match the assets to each other, so we get kind of continual streets and things don't look too strange, like we haven't got a load of bungalows alongside some really fancy mansions, which is what happens obviously when you zone in. Then we're using some of these lower density assets that are a bit blockier, a bit taller to kind of transition into some of this high density up here. Used a couple of the wall-to-walls actually. We've got a little modern condo development on this corner, and of course a lot of detailing is needed in here to bring this all together. I've just added in a couple of little car parks in here. I really like doing this now with this no controller trick on this corner. I can put little planters in to mark where the car parking spaces are going. Again, another little play park there that needs a lot of detailing. Then we've left this little area for a little bit of natural detailing there. And then the final thing is we have added in a little block of commercial down this side, Trying to be careful to slope it down the hill, which I think looks quite nice. Like, I'm quite enjoying building on some of this crazy terrain here, actually. And we have just added in a back kind of yard, fenced it off in between with a few trees, a couple of little props in there already, but we'll do more of that within the detail and time lapse. And of course some car parking spaces next to our garage this side, and more of the same down this row here. And we have added in services too, so we've got another elementary school here which needs detailing. We've got healthcare, elder care, childcare, fire and police. All of this will need detailing up. We do need to put in some graveyards, which I will do as well. I must not forget that before the end of the episode. I think we'll probably do a little graveyard patch out the back over here, or somewhere here, potentially up against the highway. Have a couple of graveyards in there. But what we do want to come on to now is fixing up this pedestrian area. So we do want to actually create a pedestrian district for starters, which we don't have here. So let's go ahead and mark that out, and we'll use the small one just to mark that out really nicely in here, and we'll kind of enclose it into the castle walls, keeping this nice and neat, of course, in the district layout there. So we'll just trim this bit off where we've exceeded the walls, but make sure this entire area is covered where we've got that pedestrian road. And of course we need to bring it down here, because what we do need with this is our service buildings, which I am going to put into this space over here as kind of like the entrance to the area next to the train station. I think is an appropriate placement for that. So let's go ahead and place those in. So we could probably just get away with one small service building here. However, I'm not really too keen on the aesthetics of it. And I think actually up next to the station here, it might be quite nice to build it up a little bit. So I'm thinking what we will add is actually a small garbage and a small cargo service yard. I think, yeah, this will work quite nicely. This garbage one looks particularly good on the corner here as well. I would add nice little office doors there, and it's a bit natural around the back as well, so I think that fits in quite nicely. And then here, what we will do, I think, is we'll add this in onto this road here so that we can then detail this up into more of a bit of a cargo yard here, add a few more props in there just to make that super nice and a little bit more detailed than how it comes. So we should be able to press play now, and they should have the necessary services that they need. Still complaining. They need garbage collection already, of course. The garbage does seem to be a little bit dodgy, I would add, in these service areas. I've had quite a lot of garbage complaints over in our other pedestrian area over that side, but we'll see. Let's hope that that goes away there. Okay, so the other thing that I would like to add into this area is a tram network. I was considering trolley bus, but I really don't want the effect actually of the overhead wires around here. And I feel like tram feels a little bit more European because we're doing an old castle. I think we're kind of getting that vibes for this area. Not that Auridon is European by any means. It is an amalgamation of what Cities Skylines offers us. A little bit American in places, a little bit European in places. It's a bit of a mishmash. But here, this is pretty much a European style area, I'd say. So I think that tram is probably going to be the most appropriate thing here. But I do want to add in some trolley buses somewhere into Auridon, but we'll find a more appropriate place, I think, in due course. So what I will do with the tram, and I'm thinking I do want it in this space as well. Let's just grab our tram road, and I think we'll bring up a little section like that up next to the train station here. And then we can join the tram terminal onto it. This is not going to feed into the main tram network, which is why we are going to want and going to need to put in its own terminal, as we are doing. So let's add that in there. Okay, that has snapped in now. And we're going to have to just adjust this rail back ever so slightly here, or in fact we could pull this up a little bit further now that that's snapped in, just so we don't get that fence overlap in there. And I'm conscious those trees are now on the road, so this could be pretty fiddly to get in. Might need to shift it back just a tiny touch so that we get this in a little bit nicer. So we do have a tree in the middle of the pavement, and that guy is literally going to walk right through the middle of it, of course, of course. So let's push this up as close as we can get this fence to the edge of the railway track, which I think is about there. And now that tree is off the pavement, so that seems okay for me. And then we get this nice brick wall as well behind these service assets, which I quite like the aesthetic of. Again, more detailing around here needed to tidy that up. But all in all, I think that will fit in there nicely. So let's go ahead and just lay out our tram network. Okay, so we've got our tram starting to come out, and how I have laid out the network is I've just done essentially a big circle, but it turns around here, comes back all the way past the station, all the way around through this district, down onto the waterfront, and then turns around here. So what we've got here is actually a stop this side and one this side at either end of the line. So we definitely want to add some walking path access between the two of them so that people can easily get from stop to stop. So someone over here, for example, can get the tram to here, hop onto this one and get up to the high school, which we're about to put into here if they so wanted to. So instead of just being an actual loop, I think this maybe makes it a little bit more efficient and then should hopefully give us a little bit of nice little walking action going on in this square here. So yes, coming on to the high school complex. So that is what I wanted to add into this space. Now we are going to use the European high school, I think, for this. Being that this is a bit of a European vibe area, I think this will make sense and look quite nice here. And plus we've only got one, I think, in Auridon so far, and we've got the space as well to add it, being that it's quite a large building. But in addition to this, I mean, I've kind of neglected our education needs in Auridon. So we're really on the line in terms of high school capacity and also elementary, which is why I've got 2 elementary schools in this area. We desperately need to get in the high capacity elementary, I think, around in the downtown area, which we'll come on to in an episode very soon. I think just with the high school for now, what I will do to try and increase capacity a little bit is actually add in this one as well to kind of help create a bit of a larger complex in here. So we'll just grab the vanilla road for now. We can change it up in a second, and we'll bring out a road like this through the middle here. And then what we can do is grab our other high school and we'll place this in nicely here. I am going to shift this back a bit so it sits a little bit further away. We will change up this road because it doesn't sit quite right, just like that. And we don't want to shift it back too far because of this terrain. We want to make sure we've got a path down to that back entrance there. And then as well, just to complement it, I think we will add in our usual little football field. So this one, which I think will work quite nicely in here. And now this is where we definitely need to change up this road because this does not fit in at this current time. So let's upgrade the road. I think what we will do is do our concrete connector road. So we'll change it up to that for now. Let's draw this back this way, just a little bit. So we get this slightly tighter in to the side of this high school here. We have got a little bit of room to move this over, and I kind of don't mind if this is a little bit slopey up to this side entrance. I think that's okay. We can do some detailing to help that sit in a little bit better. And then let's draw this up just a little bit further. We don't want that fence kind of clipping into it, so that feels about right. And then we should have enough room for our football field in here. I think what we will do is angle this road in slightly so that it sits in a little bit better. So we can do that like that. And then around it, I definitely want to add in some more parking. So I think we'll use our tiny little strip road parking here. So we can add that in opposite here, which helps to create a little bit of a car park vibe, I suppose, next to the football field. And I think we will actually pull this up a little bit further. And then we can do some nice detailing outside the back of it as well. So let's add in a second one of those and see if we can get that up this side, just to extend that parking access there. And of course we're going to want surface painter in here just to fill that out and help to complete that car park style strip area there. And then over this side as well, I think we will add in a slightly larger car park. Again, the one that we have plopped elsewhere in Auridon. I'm going to struggle to find it now. Here it is. So yeah, we'll add in this one just to help expand on that car parking for the high school there. And then here what we can do is actually slope this out a little bit nicer. We can smooth this off so it's just slightly less severe on this corner here. And of course a bit of detailing needed in there to tidy that up. I think all in all that is going to be fine. We are going to want to add some fencing or something around here, so we'll probably do the trick that we did down in the downtown using a little bit of retaining wall to add that in, which will help to blend into the side of the football field anyway. I quite like how it's sort of raised up. I like this aesthetic from the street when we get these layers of height. It's nice to have this little sloping wall, I think, up to where the high school complex sits in here. So yeah, that is how it's going to sit in, and again, obviously lots of detailing needed around that to help bed it in a little bit better. Now the final thing I want to do before we do come on to detailing is just a little bit of work around the front of the castle here. Now for sure, I'm thinking we really want the park information booths in here, which would really look like kind of ticket offices and that sort of thing as we come on into it. So I think we are actually going to have 2 of these, and we are going to make sure that they are the height of this node here. So hopefully that'll push the ground down, around them, so it's not looking too dodgy like that. We'll make sure they're nicely aligned to the path, but I think that gives us quite a nice ticket booth entrance. We'll probably do another one, like a little ticket checkpoint at the top of the hill as well, just to make sure people aren't walking in for free, even though they are walking in for free. And we'll definitely be adding more cafes and park life props in and around this area as well, so we will come on to that again in the detail and time lapse. But then what I think would be nice out here is a few of these sort of picnic style plazas, and we probably want to do a little bit of bob work on that vanilla tree in the middle. Have I not used these elsewhere in Auridon? Maybe I haven't. And it's slightly annoying that the tiles glitch over there, but it's not too bad. So I think what we can do is actually frame either side of the road with these. So we'll add in another one over this side as well. And I kind of don't mind too much that it overclips the pavement, because there's no props or anything that they are walking through. So the tiles can overclip there, and that'll be absolutely fine. Then that gives us, quite a nice little plaza just right outside the front of here. And I think what we'll do is add in a few smaller commercial units and offices into this space and over here as well. Maybe even some more car parks actually, depending on how flat this land is, because I've noticed this car park, we've got flying cars, so I need to try and fix that. They're not parking on the ground, they like to park mid-air. But that is in essence the type of vibe that we are trying to achieve outside the front here. So I think really that is time to come in with a bit of detailing. So of course, lots and lots of detailing work to be done on this castle and the grounds all the way around it. Giving this little suburb a nice edge along this collector and down here as well. Finishing off the high school with a bit of detailing. This park area in the middle, and of course lots of detailing in amongst the high density residential area here. And the elementary schools, and adding in graveyards. So there's quite a lot to be done in this detail and time lapse. But I will jump into it and I will be right back. Okay, so where to begin? So this train station is actually getting a lot of use here. We've got quite a few people just coming backwards and forwards, coming down to the tram stops around here as well. We have gone through and decorated a lot of the tram stops, not every single one, but quite a few. We've got this design here, and then I have also done another design actually just using the vanilla bus stop, which I thought was quite cute. We've got the little screens and stuff in there, so yeah, I think that works quite nicely as a little tram stop design. But yeah, it's getting quite a bit of use, and yeah, it seems to be functioning pretty well. And our little backwards and forwards route here between the two different tram stops is working like a charm. I've been watching it and I've seen people literally getting off a tram one side, hopping over to the other side and getting on the tram to go in the other direction over here. So it's working really nicely. We could have turned this into a Park Life cheese, but I haven't. So we may as well start down here. Now on the coastline, I've tried to keep it very, very plain and simple. We've just left this completely open so people could walk down into the beach. A couple of street trees lining it. We have got our farm fence using intersection marking tool, save the loads, coming all the way around these steeper cliffs around this side. And just added in a little viewing platform over here, which gives quite nice views over the little lake onto the highway, but also across to the downtown to the skyline there as well, which will probably be unblocked from this point. I don't think anything will get in the way that's too tall. We've come in around all of these buildings and created little flower beds in different places, used some pathways to create walking paths through the different buildings. Detailed up this playground here as well, just to give it a little bit of fencing, a couple of trees around it, make it blend in a lot nicer there. Yeah, a couple of little sitting areas, benches. Same thing over here as well, nice little sitting area here with this park in between. And yeah, very much more of the same as we go round. Added in lots of flowers detailing around these houses too. Our park, as you've seen, I've tried to keep it actually relatively free of trees. There's no fencing around it as well, so it's just one that they could walk into. A few picnic benches dotted around and the such like, a couple of the gazebos, and then obviously finished off with adding a little fake playground, so it won't get any use sadly, but we have added some little Sims who have completely sunk through the bench. So let's go ahead and fix those while we're at it. So if we make sure we've got snapping on, we should be able to raise them back up. There we go. They were like that before, I swear. Another little sitting sim there. So it kind of looks like there are some people in there, even though people won't actually go in. But I think aesthetically it looks quite nice. Coming on to the other residential, we've just added in more rocks around the elementary school where we did finish off the playground here, added a little basketball court, a couple of play equipment, some benches, of course fenced in, or hedged in this case, the front here as well. That's nice and secure and safe. I don't know why there isn't a hedge on the front of that in the vanilla asset there. And then yeah, just finished off some of this banking with some overgrowth and some trees and some rocks in between as well, and kept that nice and natural. So it goes for over here, we've just joined pathways into the back of this big play park there, another little play park, and then in order to get our viewing platform into the side of the castle, I have had to add in a park area here, so there's technically a main gate at this point. Again, I've left this very, kind of looks like it's undetailed, and I'm kind of struggling with this as well, because it's not usually how I would leave things, but I think that this is the aesthetic I want around the castle. It's very open, and trying to use as much of this texture that happens naturally in the landscape as possible. So I think it looks okay, and it does make it stand out. If I'd just covered it in trees and overgrowth, it would just look like the rest of Auridon, but I think having this big open grassy space around it does make sense. And we have used some intersection marking tools to get the park life fence in here as well, which I think helps to just finish it off around some of these roads. Like the view down this road, which was what I was kind of obsessing with up to the castle, I think looks quite nice. So I'm liking how that's turned out. Over here we have just added in a few more commercial units as well, down both sides here. A little bit of detailing in front of them, extended out the tiling where appropriate in front of some of these assets, added on some more picnic benches in front of the pancake house here. A couple of little street trees just to finish it off, but I think overall that sort of fits into that space and is an appropriate place for it as well. In the centre of the village in front of the train station here. We have then finished off the cargo yard too with a couple of lorries, a few little crates, fenced it in nicely, so that kind of looks like it makes a bit more sense and fits in a bit better there, I think, now too. And again, around this suburb, it is just a bit more kind of backyard detailing. A few little fenced in areas, a little bit of trees, and of course this little brick wall running along this road, which I think looks quite nice there to finish off the edge of the suburb. And then on the high school, I did just add in a tennis court. We have rocked over this banking, a couple of picnic benches, a few more trees, and a couple of little bits of hedge detailing in there too. We just finished off this back entrance to the high school here as well. Actually adding in these bollards I think gives quite a nice effect there. I did that in this car park too over here, little bollards in the middle of the car parking spaces. So I think it helps to make it look a little bit more realistic actually. And then bollards around the picnic area as well, because we wouldn't want people driving onto those. So yeah, I think this area is looking okay. We've still got floating cars here, which I do need to sort. I need to try and fix that. I might have to raise up these nodes here just a little bit, but I will do that off camera after we finish recording. So then coming onto our castle, as mentioned, we've kept it very open all the way around, so it's nice and clear, the view up to the castle. And then coming in, we have added in souvenir shop, a cafe, information booth, toilets all here at the entrance. So that's really the kind of main entrance visitors centre here. And then all around the complex, we've added in these castle ruined walls, looking like old buildings, part of the castle complex that have been ruined and are yet to be restored. But what I have done on these is use node controller to make them 50% of the original width. So you can see that here on the main wall over this side. But I thought that having them that thick looked a little bit unrealistic, especially when we compare them to the walls that come with this main castle building here, which are much, much skinnier. So I thought using node controller on those helped to make it look a bit more realistic. And then if we just come around here, I have used, again, node controller on the pedestrian paths to 30% of their actual width to make them a little bit skinnier so that we could run them through all of these ruins, through this castle archway as well, out the other side and round through all of these ruins, which I thought was quite a nice little effect. So anyone visiting can walk all the way around the castle ruins on these nice cobblestone roads. Added in a little bit of picnic areas, again, some park life buildings just to encourage people down here. And then down this side, we have added in a cafe and a toilets next to this building here, which does look a bit church-like. So I'm kind of imagining this was the old church of the castle, and then they built up this really grand cathedral over this side. This one's been restored. Added in a little door here as well, so it looks like people can literally walk in here and visit this castle here. It's actually got glass in the windows, as you can see, the massive city reflection in them. I thought that was quite a nice touch, give definitely a place for people to visit in addition to the fort and to the cathedral here, a building that has certainly been restored over time. And we've got this little orange grove up the back as well, with a couple of additional shops, picnic benches and the such like, and then we come on to this natural path that flows all the way around, the little viewing platform here, out over the city over this side. Then they can walk all the way around the castle ruins, a couple of picnic benches dotted around, up to another toilet block this side, and then back onto the cobblestone path which flows through these ruins here. We did add a little office here, which I'm imagining is a staff block, and again another souvenir shop, and lots of picnic benches dotted around. And then we come on to the main feature here, which is this cobblestone plaza. Now, I was going to put in one of the plazas and promenades DLC plazas, but actually I didn't feel like the fountains worked here. It was a bit too modern, so what I've done is use this statue that we used on Exit Island, and then added in my own little detailing around it to have these little bench areas with hedges, which I thought looked quite nice, sat in front of the cathedral here. And we've used some of these castle walls around it just to frame it off. You can find a link to these in the description. They come as part of a castle pack, and I'm going to show you the rest of it in a second. In fact, it's the same pack that we've used for this building over here. And then we've cobblestone tiled all the front of this again to help make it feel a bit older, and bobbed off the old vanilla trees for apple trees around the back here. So we've got an apple grove around the back of the cathedral here, but I haven't done too much else to it. We could have gone really ultra grand with this, but I wanted this just to be an old cathedral that sat in an old castle that has been restored and maintained. So hopefully that's the kind of vibe that comes across here. And then of course we fly up to the main fort. Now what I have done here is again use some of these castle walls all the way around. We've obviously used the ploppable grass to cover that up. And these castle walls then help to cover that a little bit, with a few turrets and these big towers up the front here as well. But I think that helps to add a little bit of grandeur to it, having those extra walls in there. Looks even more castle-y, I think, than before. They are a slightly different colour to the fort, but again I'm fine with that if we're envisioning that a lot of this has been restored over time. I'm absolutely fine with that. And then yeah, we've got lots of people visiting the inside of the fort, which is quite exciting there. Now, one final touch that I do want to add is, of course, adding in the Auridon flag. So let's go ahead and find that. And what we will do is add, I think, two at the entrance here, certainly. And then potentially one more up at the castle over here. So we'll add this into this corner. And yeah, I just think that adds a nice little touch to our castle as you're coming up to it. Although actually, I'm wondering if these should be slightly further down, just behind these information booths, so they don't interrupt with that big castle entrance there. Of course, make those level. Yeah, that probably looks a little bit better. But there we go. So that is our grand castle in, and I think it sits in pretty nicely. Like the views from all around. It is raised. It's not super raised, super obvious, but it's a nice big landmass that stands out in the sort of skyline of Auridon. So yeah, pleased with that, and particularly this view up along this tiered residential up to the castle there, really, really happy with. And again, just this view from the road, looking up that slope onto the castle. Yeah, pleased with how it's come out. So just before we go, I do just want to check our tram line quickly. So it is getting quite a bit of use, but their trams are not particularly full. So there are people waiting at most stops, or at least on most trams here. But I think we will remove a couple of vehicles. So let's just go down to 6, I think, for now, which should be plenty, and cover that off. So yeah, that looks pretty decent to me. And then one final thing before we go is to give this district around here a name. And we are going to name this after one of my top tier Patreons, and that is Lordy Lord. This is going to be the Lordy Lord district. Thank you so much for all of your support, Lordy Lord. I so appreciate it. So yeah, there we go. So we have got the Lordy Lord district around the castle, but we are still yet to give the actual castle itself a name. So please throw those into the comments and let me know your suggestions for our castle. I was kind of thinking after the last stream, it maybe should be King Bob's Castle. If you agree, let me know in the comments, or if you've got better suggestions, of course, let me know those too. But for today, that is going to be it. So if you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares below are all really appreciated. And there are other ways to support the channel in the description of the video as well, if you wish to support the channel further. But for today, that is going to be it. So stay tuned for the cinematics, and I will catch you again next time. Bye bye.